Now, occasionally I'll come across a rumor that hasn't really been reported or talked about online much, and sometimes I'll pursue it depending. It really comes down to how interested I am in the subject. The one that was really out there to me at one point was the George R. R. Martin From Software stuff. That was pretty out there. But here we are now heading into the Game Awards, and apparently there's rumors that Elden Ring is even going to be shown there. Of course, was announced at E3, and that I think surprised a lot of people, myself a little bit, to be honest. If I George R. R. Martin From Software, yeah. But one's kind of come across the desk here, we'll say, and I wanted to pursue it a bit because it is something I would like to see happen, and it does sound like it is going to be happening, and I'm trying to figure out when it could be announced. But it's exciting to hear that, yes, Resident Evil 3 Remake is actually a thing. Like, they are currently developing it, and what's interesting about this is their target year is a little sooner than I kind of thought it would be. Capcom appears to be targeting 2020 for this game, which is interesting because Resident Evil 2 Remake, we'll just call it Resident Evil 2, came out, in January of this year? So I don't know if it's early 2020, mid 2020, late. I've heard that it's 2020, Resident Evil 3 2020, so the remake. That is going to be really cool because they should use the RE engine, we assume, and it'll be this really neat full reimagining of Resident Evil 3, which of course had Nemesis, and people were complaining about Mr. X. I can't imagine how they're going to deal with Nemesis on this one. Then can you imagine Nemesis and half the stuff in that game in the RE engine? It's going to be insane. Now, if you remember, Capcom did say that hey, if there's enough interest from fans, and hey, maybe if Resident Evil 2 does well enough out there, whether it's through critical response or fans in general buying it, yeah, we can look into doing more with remakes of different games. And I mean, Resident Evil 3 you assume would be next in line to be remade, and people were calling for it, and here we are now. They do appear to be working through active development on it, and I guess we could hear about it soonish. That is where the rumor that I can at least say appears to be correct so far kind of ends, and the speculation part of the video now begins, because now I try to figure out, when are they going to announce this thing? Now, my first thought was, oh, the Game Awards. That would make sense. That'd be a big announcement, right? And because Resident Evil 2 was so well received, it's in the Game of the Year nominations. That's gonna have, some big looks throughout the night as they talk about the different nominees. It'll have this big stage presence where they, of course, do the, the music. They'll do that fun orchestra thing, I assume, where they go through all the different games. And Resident Evil 2 is in a few other categories as well. So it will have some pretty big shine throughout the night. And what better spot would it be for Capcom to show up and say, hey, you guys like Resident Evil 2 so much, you put it in the Game of the Year category. Guess what? Next year, Resident Evil 3 is getting a remake. But let's say it's not at the Game Awards. When would they announce it if it's coming 2020? Because I don't think it's coming early 2020. It's a little late for that now for them to announce it. They would have had to have done it probably at E3, similar to what they did with Resident Evil 2, right? I believe they announced it at E3, at Sony's conference, and then it showed up in January the next year. So it had, like a 7-month window, runway until release. So it's possible it could find its way into a state of play next year. That's very possible. I don't know if they would wait till E3 next year, because then they would be showing what I assume would be a current gen project, a PlayStation 4 and an Xbox One project, next to brand new systems with Scarlet and PlayStation 5, and they would get a lot of questions like, why isn't it just on the newer systems? Although the newer systems might be just fully backwards compatible, as we assume, so it really doesn't matter too much. They might be asked more or less, hey, will this have enhancements for next-gen systems? So that's kind of why I'm thinking they would do it before E3, especially if it comes out holiday or even October, or what if they brought it out around Halloween next year? That would be really cool. That's kind of where we are now. I've heard that Resident Evil 3 Remake is indeed in development, and they are trying to have it out within the next year, so 2020. Now, I will also say delays can happen, of course, internally, and things can change, because even if they do reveal it, it'll probably just say 2020 for the year. They won't try to name a month or anything when they initially announce it, and then probably later on we'll get some kind of press release or Twitter post saying that it is coming, this date exactly. But it is fun to hear that, yeah, Resident Evil 3, a game a lot of people were hoping, especially after seeing Resident Evil 2 get revealed and look like that and play like that, which is my game of the year currently, Resident Evil 2. It's exciting stuff to see what they can do with that RE engine going forward, and I'm glad to hear that they are looking back and working their way up and remaking a lot of these games. Well, let me know what you guys think about the idea of Resident Evil 3 Remake. That'd be pretty cool. And keep in mind, this is in rumor wave, so while Capcom has not revealed it, I would just want to leave it in rumor wave just because it technically is a rumor. You get some right with Elden Ring, and then, of course, you get some wrong with Metroid Prime Trilogy. So that's why I want to just leave it in there. It's not 100% confirmed, obviously, by the company Capcom. But let me know what you guys think below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.